Hey, it's Vanessa the Crafty Gemini. A ton of you have asked me on Facebook to teach you how to can, so we're starting off with a low sugar blueberry jam recipe. Every summer here in Florida, the kids and I love to get up early on a Saturday morning and head out to a local organic blueberry farm that we have just up the road from us. We've picked 31 pounds of blueberries this year so far and have been playing around with a ton of new recipes. I'm kind of in the mood to make another batch of blueberry jam, so I wanted to share the recipe with you all. So let's do it! So to get started, we need some supplies. Get your canning jars, and I'm using the half pint jars here by Ball. These are 8-ounce jars. They come in a box of a dozen like this. This recipe is only going to give me about 5 jars or so full, so I'm going to take out what I need so I can wash and prep them. The next thing is a large stock pot. This is not a specific canning pot, it's just a big large pot. I think this one is maybe a 10-quart pot, and you're going to need some kind of a rack to put at the bottom. This is going to be so we can keep the jars off the really hot bottom of the pot, okay? They sell these different kinds of kits that you can buy. Here's what came with mine. These are like little prongs that help you lift up the hot jars from the water, a ladle to fill the jars with, a funnel. It came with these plastic ones, but I prefer to use the stainless steel funnel. And this is a magnetic utensil that allows me to pick up the lids and the bands for the metal stuff for covering up my jars. And this helps us measure the headspace that we're leaving in each jar. So I'll show you how all this stuff works once we get started. So the first thing I gotta do is take the lids and the bands off of my brand new jars because I want to wash all of this stuff in some warm soapy water, okay? So take all the lids and bands, wash them all out individually, make sure that they're nice and clean. Then I take the lids and put them in some really low heat simmering water. You don't want to bring them up to a boil, we just want them to be simmering, okay? After that, I'm putting a rack here. I have all my cleaned out jars. I have the rack in the bottom of my pot, and I'm going to put all my jars inside. Now I'm going to fill them up with water, and I want the water to cover the jars over top, okay? So just keep adding water until you get to that point because we need to bring this up to a light boil, and then I'll shut it off and just keep it simmering. The reason for this is that we want the jars to be hot when we add the hot jam into it. Otherwise, when there's a large temperature difference like that, you run the risk of cracking your jars, and we don't want that. So let me scoot this over there while that water comes up to a simmer. We're using Pomona's Universal Pectin, which is a gluten-free and vegan pectin that I prefer to use because I can make low sugar recipes like this one. Inside the box, you'll find 3 things. One is a pectin packet, the other one is the calcium, and then the instructions. So there's tons of instructions here. There's different recipes and jams and things to try. There's even guidelines on how to create your own. The one we'll be doing is going to be a low sugar recipe on the cooked recipe side using blueberries. So we're going to make blueberry jam. I look under where it says blueberries, and I can see the yield is going to be 4 to 5 of those half pint jars. It has all the ingredients and how much of each you need to make that amount of jam. So let's put this away and let's get started. We can make these low sugar jam recipes because the gelling power in Pomona's Universal Pectin is activated by calcium. So you have a calcium pack. You need some calcium water for the recipe. Just grab a clear jar with a lid, add half a cup of cold water, and to that add half of a teaspoon of the calcium powder included. Shake it up and set it aside until you need it. Now we get to mashing our blueberries. For this recipe, you will need a total of 4 cups of mashed berries. I just like to mash them in a bowl with a potato masher. Make sure that they're fresh or thawed out. That'll make for a lot easier mashing. I'm putting a pot on the stove at medium heat, and I'm going to start adding in my 4 cups of mashed berries right in there. Next, the recipe calls for 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and I'm using fresh here, but you can also use store-bought. And I just give this a quick little stir around to mix things up. Now we can add our calcium water. You want to make sure that you shake this up well before you start grabbing the teaspoonfuls of the calcium water. So shake it up and then put 2 teaspoons of the calcium water right into your pot. You can put the lid back on your jar and put it in the fridge, and it'll last you a long time for you to make some more future jam batches. Now for our sweetener, I'm using organic evaporated cane juice, and I'm measuring out just under 1 cup here. This recipe actually has a sliding scale for the sweetener, so whether you're using some kind of a sugar or honey, you can go anywhere from 3/4 of a cup all the way up to 2 cups to sweeten this batch of jam. So to your sweetener, go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of the pectin powder that's included. Then give it a good mix to make sure that pectin is incorporated throughout that sweetener. Once your berries come up to a boil, add in your sweetener, and I like to take a whisk and whisk it thoroughly for a couple of minutes, making sure to dissolve all that pectin. Then bring your berry mixture back up to a boil, and once you see it start to boil, then you can shut it off and move it off of the heat. Now it's time to fill our jars, so I'm going to take one jar out of the simmering water, put the funnel on top of it, and start ladling in my jam. You want to fill your jar so they're 1/4 inch from the top, and I'm taking my little measuring device thing and I can see that I'm still a little bit way down. So just with a smaller spoon, you can, add a little bit extra until you get to that point where you're 1/4 inch off the top edge. And on my little gauge thing here, it's just the first step down. So you can see right there, I'm just about right. So grab a clean cloth and you want to wipe off both the top of the rim and the sides of the rim. When I use a funnel, I don't get any jam on the side, so I really just have to wipe off the top. Now we can add our two-piece lid, first the top part and then the band, and screw it on, but not too tight, just till it's snug, okay? Put it right back into the hot water. And then once you have all of your jars in there, you see I have my 5, make sure that the level of the water in the pot is at least an inch or so above the jars. You want to make sure that they're completely submerged, okay? Add the lid on it, bring it up to a boil, and then once you see that the water starts to boil, that's when I put the lid back on, and then I like to set my timer for the 10 minutes. That's the processing time that this jam recipe requires. Once those 10 minutes are up, I shut off the heat, I take off the lid, and I just personally like to let them sit in there for about 5 minutes to let the pressure inside of the jars stabilize. Then we can take our jars out, and I like to place them on a towel on the counter just so that they're not touching a really cool countertop or anything like that that can risk breaking the jars because of the large temperature difference. Now we let them cool, and this one still has a bulge, so it's not sealed yet, where this one, the center curves downward into the jar, so it's been sealed. You can see here a close-up shot of how it snaps into place, and you'll hear popping sounds. I like to double check the seals by removing the bands and then lifting up right on the lid and making sure that it doesn't separate from the jar. That tells me that they've been properly processed and it has a tight seal. Now that your jam is done, you can eat it fresh or store it in your pantry for up to a year. After you open up a jar, make sure you store it in the refrigerator and use it within a couple of weeks. Enjoy! And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this super easy, low sugar blueberry jam recipe. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit it with the thumbs up below, share it across the different social media sites, and don't forget to click that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any of my future video tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!